The Great Hall of the United Nations fell silent as Captain James Russell strode confidently toward the podium, his German Shepherd Atlas walking in perfect formation beside him. As one of Earth's most decorated K9 handlers, James had been selected to demonstrate human canine capabilities to the newly arrived Nexarian Empire. His weathered face remained impassive, though his jaw tightened at the sound of subtle chittering, the Nexarian equivalent of snickering, from the alien delegation. The Nexarians had arrived 3 months ago, their massive ships darkening skies worldwide. They came not as conquerors but as self-proclaimed elevators of primitive species. Their bipedal, crystalline forms towered over humans, their translucent bodies pulsing with what they claimed was superior evolutionary energy. But it was their attitude that truly set them apart, an insufferable mixture of condescension and amusement toward Earth's customs. High Chancellor Nick Za, their leader, sat in the front row, his crystalline form glowing with what humans had learned to recognize as smug superiority. Behind him, the Nexarian Scientific Council continued their barely contained laughter as James and Atlas took their positions. Esteemed delegates, James began, his voice carrying the authority of his 15 years in service, we're here today to demonstrate the advanced capabilities of human canine teams in military and civilian operations. Fascinating, Nixa interrupted, his universal translator carrying the dripping sarcasm perfectly. The primitive brings its pet to a diplomatic assembly. More chittering laughter rippled through the alien delegation. James felt Atlas tense slightly beside him but remained perfectly stationed, exactly as trained. The dog's discipline only prompted more amusement from the Nexarians. You mistake a partnership for ownership, James replied evenly. Atlas isn't a pet. He's a highly trained military operative with capabilities that complement and enhance human operations. The High Chancellor rose, his crystalline form catching the light dramatically. Captain Russell, we have studied your species extensively. Your emotional attachment to these quadrupedal creatures is well documented. It's quite adorable. The word carried the weight of centuries of condescension. But surely you don't expect us to take seriously a species that relies on primitive animals for support. The alien delegation's chittering grew louder. Some were actually recording the interaction on their advanced devices, treating it like some sort of cosmic joke. Atlas has saved my life 17 times, James stated firmly. He's detected explosives that no technology could find, tracked survivors through impossible conditions, and demonstrated intelligence that would surprise you. Impossible conditions, another Nexarian scientist called out. Our scanners can detect a single bacterial cell from orbit. Are you suggesting your furry companion can outperform our technology? James maintained his composure, though his hand instinctively moved to rest on Atlas's head. The shepherd remained perfectly still, dark eyes alert and intelligent, seemingly unaffected by the mockery around them. With respect, James replied, there are things that can't be measured by your scanners. The bond between humans and dogs evolved over thousands of years. It's a partnership that transcends pure technology. This statement broke the dam of Nexarian restraint. The great hall filled with their crystalline laughter, the sound like breaking glass amplified through 1,000 speakers. High Chancellor Nixa actually had to steady himself against the podium. Oh, this is precious, the Chancellor managed between bouts of laughter. You speak of evolution, yet you cling to creatures that still defecate in public spaces. Surely you see the humor in this. A species claiming readiness for galactic integration while maintaining ritualistic bonds with animals. James felt his face flush, but years of military discipline kept his voice steady. You might want to reconsider your position, Chancellor. Underestimating human canine teams could be a significant mistake. A mistake? Do enlighten us, Captain. Nixaw's form pulsed with patronizing colors. What possible consequence could we face from mocking such a charmingly primitive arrangement? Before James could respond, the chamber's emergency systems flared to life. Red warning lights bathed the hall in an ominous glow as Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos, multiple unauthorized entries detected in the building's secure sectors. All security teams respond immediately. The Nexarian delegation's laughter died as quickly as it had begun. Their advanced security systems, which they had so proudly installed throughout the UN building, seemed to be malfunctioning, showing multiple contradictory readings. James exchanged a knowing look with Atlas, whose ears had perked up at the first sign of trouble. Well, Chancellor, he said calmly, you might get your demonstration sooner than expected. Ready to see what a primitive arrangement can do. The smug expressions of the Nexarian delegation were beginning to fade, replaced by uncertain glances as their vaunted technology continued to provide confused and conflicting data. They were about to learn firsthand why laughing at a human and his dog was never a wise decision. The UN building's emergency lights cast crimson shadows across the crystalline forms of the panicking Nexarian delegation. Their sophisticated scanning equipment continued displaying contradictory readings, showing intruders in multiple locations simultaneously. High Chancellor Nixaw's translucent body pulsed with agitated patterns as his security team rushed about ineffectively. Impossible, the Nexarian security chief declared, his crystalline form flickering with distress patterns. Our biodetection systems are the most advanced in 7 galaxies. How can they not pinpoint these intruders? James Russell maintained his composed stance, Atlas alert and ready beside him. Perhaps, he suggested with careful neutrality, your advanced systems aren't calibrated for Earth's more primitive threats. The Chancellor's mocking laughter had entirely disappeared, replaced by growing concern as more alert signals flashed across their holographic displays. The Nexarian guards deployed their energy weapons, the crystalline devices humming with barely contained power. Captain Russell, Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm system, we have confirmed hostile presence. Initial reports suggest they're using some kind of adaptive cloaking technology. Our systems can't get a lock. James nodded to Atlas, who was already focused intently on the eastern corridor. Permission to demonstrate those primitive capabilities you found so amusing, Chancellor. Before Nixaw could respond, a shadow moved at the edge of the chamber. The Nexarian guards fired immediately, their energy weapons leaving scorch marks on empty walls. Atlas's ears twitched, his training keeping him steady despite the weapon's fire. Atlas search, James commanded quietly. The German shepherd moved forward with fluid precision, his nose working the air currents in a systematic pattern. The Nexarians watched with bewildered amusement that quickly turned to astonishment as Atlas locked onto an invisible trail. The animal appears to be malfunctioning, one of the Nexarian scientists observed condescendingly. There's clearly nothing. The scientist's statement cut off as Atlas suddenly lunged forward, his powerful jaws clamping onto something that shimmered into visibility. A figure in advanced stealth armor materialized, wrestling with the shepherd. 2 more shimmering forms appeared, their cloaking systems disrupted by the unexpected canine intervention. Raxan mercenaries, the Nexarian security chief exclaimed, his crystalline form pulsing with alarm patterns. The infiltrators were notorious for their adaptive technology and brutal efficiency. They had somehow slipped past every advanced detection system in the building. James moved with military precision, coordinating seamlessly with Atlas. The shepherd released his hold and repositioned on command, allowing James to engage one mercenary while Atlas kept the others at bay. The Nexarian guards, for all their advanced weapons, struggled to target the rapidly moving infiltrators. Impossible, Chancellor Nixaw muttered, watching as the human canine team systematically cornered and disabled the intruders. Their movements are synchronized, but there's no technology linking them. Within minutes, the threat was contained. 3 Raxan mercenaries lay subdued on the floor, their advanced stealth systems rendered useless by the combined efforts of a human handler and his primitive partner. Atlas returned to James's side, alert but composed, showing none of the mindless aggression the Nexarians had expected from an inferior species. Would you like a detailed explanation of how we detected them? James asked the stunned Chancellor, unable to completely hide his satisfaction. Or should we discuss why investing in partnerships rather than just technology might have merit? The chamber had fallen silent, the earlier mockery replaced by thoughtful observation. The Nexarian scientists were frantically recording data, their instruments focused on Atlas as if seeing him for the first time. The canine detected variations in air currents and scent patterns that our sensors missed, one scientist announced, wonder creeping into her translated voice. And their cooperative attack strategy, it's not programmed or artificially linked, it's adaptive, intuitive. Chancellor Nixaw approached slowly, his crystalline form now pulsing with colors that indicated deep thought rather than amusement. You said 17 times, he stated, referring to James's earlier comment about Atlas saving his life. Perhaps we require more detailed observations of these partnerships. Happy to provide demonstrations, James replied, scratching Atlas behind the ears, a gesture that made several Nexarians flinch. though next time maybe with less mockery. The Chancellor's form flickered with embarrassment patterns. Your point is made, Captain, however. His translator hesitated slightly. You should know that the Raxan rarely work alone. These three were likely an advanced team. James nodded, exchanging a knowing look with Atlas. Then I suggest we stop laughing at primitive methods and start combining our capabilities. Because I guarantee you, Chancellor, there are more threats out there that your technology alone won't detect. As if confirming his words, Atlas's head turned sharply toward the western entrance, his posture signaling another alert. The Nexarian guards raised their weapons again, but this time they looked to James and Atlas for guidance rather than dismissal. The Chancellor's colors shifted to decision patterns. Captain Russell, consider your demonstration approved for full implementation. Now shall we see what else your primitive partnership can teach us about survival. The next 48 hours transformed the United Nations building into a fortress of combined human and Nexarian security. Despite their earlier mockery, the crystalline aliens now watched with intense focus as human canine teams swept the perimeter. Their own advanced sensors had been recalibrated based on data from the first attack, but they still couldn't match the detection capabilities of the dogs. James and Atlas led the integration efforts, though not without friction. The Nexarian security forces, while no longer openly derisive, still struggled to take orders that involved trusting animal instincts over their technology. Their crystalline forms would pulse with skepticism whenever James explained the importance of reading canine body language. Your defensive formations are inefficient, Commander Zixra, the Nexarian security chief, declared during a strategy session. His form flickered with the now familiar patterns of barely contained superiority. The time spent waiting for animal confirmations reduces our response speed by 3.7 seconds. James kept his voice level, though Atlas's ears twitched at his suppressed irritation. Those 3.7 seconds prevented 3 more infiltration attempts last night, or did you miss that in your efficiency calculations? Before the commander could respond, Atlas suddenly stiffened, his attention locked on the ventilation system. The Nexarian guards immediately raised their weapons, their crystalline forms pulsing with combat readiness, a significant change from their previous dismissal of canine alerts. Multiple breach points detected, a Nexarian sensor operator announced, their advanced systems finally catching up to what Atlas had already sensed. Raxan energy signatures, but different from before. The attack came from all directions at once. The ventilation system exploded inward as dozens of Raxan mercenaries dropped into the chamber. Their new stealth technology rendered them almost completely invisible, producing only the slightest distortion in the air. Primitive instincts seem rather valuable now, don't they? James commented dryly as he and Atlas moved into action. The shepherd's enhanced training kicked in, his bark pattern communicating the positions of invisible attackers to other K-9 teams throughout the building. The Nexarians watched in astonishment as their supposedly superior combat systems struggled to track the enhanced Raxan technology. But the dogs had no such limitations, responding to scent, sound, and minute air disturbances that no artificial sensor could detect. Impossible, Commander Zixra exclaimed as Atlas herded 3 cloaked Raxans into a corner, his precise movements forcing them to cluster where James and the Nexarian guards could target them effectively. The animal is implementing advanced tactical containment strategies. That's what happens when you evolve alongside your partners instead of just building better toys, James replied, coordinating with Atlas to systematically clear the chamber. Connection over technology, remember. The battle reached its critical point when a Raxan commander, his stealth field flickering from damage, raised an unknown weapon toward the Nexarian delegation. Atlas reacted before anyone could shout a warning, his powerful frame launching through the air. The shepherd's jaws closed on the weapon arm, disrupting the shot that would have decimated the crystalline aliens. High Chancellor Nixza, who had insisted on personally observing the security integration, stood in stunned silence as Atlas positioned himself protectively in front of the Nexarian leadership. The dog's actions displayed not just training, but a fundamental understanding of his duty to protect, even those who had mocked him. You still think emotional bonds make us weak, Chancellor? James asked, moving to support his partner. The question carried the weight of every dismissive laugh, every condescending comment they'd endured. The Chancellor's crystalline form pulsed with complex patterns never before seen by human observers. Captain Russell, he began, his translator struggling to convey the mixture of humility and revelation in his tone. I believe we have catastrophically misunderstood the nature of strength. More Raxan mercenaries were retreating now, their advanced technology proving insufficient against the combined might of human canine teams and Nexarian weapons. But it was the sight of Atlas, still standing guard over the alien leadership, that truly drove home the Chancellor's realization. To think, Nixaw continued, his form still rippling with new patterns, we laughed at what we could not comprehend. A partnership that transcends pure technological advancement, a bond that creates something greater than the sum of its parts. James knelt beside Atlas, checking him for injuries while maintaining tactical awareness, ready to admit that maybe, just maybe, humans and their dogs might have something to teach the galaxy. The Chancellor moved forward, his crystalline form now pulsing with what the humans present would later learn was the pattern of profound respect, a display rarely shown to any species in the galaxy. Captain, I believe we require a complete reevaluation of our approach to interspecies relationships. And perhaps, he paused, his form flickering with what might have been embarrassment, perhaps some apologies are in order. Atlas's ears perked up at movement in the eastern corridor, but his posture suggested non-hostile presence. Moments later, Admiral Chen arrived with reinforcements, only to find the situation already controlled by the very partnership the Nexarians had once ridiculed. Well, Chancellor, James said, unable to completely hide his satisfaction, ready to learn why humans and their dogs have been partners for thousands of years. The chamber, still bearing the scars of battle, filled with a new kind of silence, not the mocking quiet of before, but the thoughtful pause of a civilization realizing it had much left to learn. And at the center of it all stood a human and his dog, living proof that sometimes the most powerful connections in the universe aren't built on technology at all. 3 weeks after the Raxan attack, the Great Hall of the United Nations had been transformed. Where once crystalline aliens had sat in mocking judgment, now stood a joint training facility. James watched with quiet satisfaction as Atlas demonstrated advanced detection techniques to a group of attentive Nexarian security specialists, their forms pulsing with the colors of intense concentration. Remarkable, High Chancellor Nixaw observed, his crystalline structure now displaying the subtle patterns of humility that had become more common among his species. To think we once dismissed such capabilities as primitive, the Raxan attack would have succeeded without your teams. James nodded, noting how the Chancellor no longer flinched when Atlas approached. Amazing what you can learn when you stop laughing at things you don't understand. The facility's alert system suddenly blared to life, but this time it was different, a combination of Nexarian technology and traditional alarms, integrated after lessons learned from the previous attack. Atlas's head snapped up immediately, followed seconds later by the pulsing of alien sensor arrays. Multiple spatial distortions detected, Commander Zixra announced, his crystalline form shifting to combat readiness. Signature matches Raxan technology, but there's something else. James watched as Atlas's behavior confirmed his growing suspicion. The shepherd's posture indicated threat detection, but with a pattern he'd never seen before. They've adapted, he stated grimly, probably studied our response to the last attack. The Nexarian command center erupted into activity. Where once they would have dismissed canine alerts as primitive instincts, now they immediately began correlating sensor data with Atlas's behavior. The integration of human-canine experience with alien technology had created something unprecedented in galactic security. Incoming transmission, a Nexarian operator announced. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a Raxan commander, a scarred reptilian figure whose armor bore the marks of recent combat. Your hybrid defense system is interesting, the Raxan sneered, though James noted the underlying tension in his voice. But we've evolved beyond your primitive countermeasures. High Chancellor Nixaw stepped forward, his crystalline form pulsing with what humans had learned to recognize as diplomatic authority. You face not primitive countermeasures, but the combined strength of two civilizations. Stand down. The Raxan commander's laugh carried the same dismissive tone the Nexarians had once used. Combined strength, you've grown soft, Chancellor, relying on humans and their pets. Allow us to demonstrate true power. The attack began before he finished speaking. New forms of stealth technology, combined with advanced electronic warfare, created chaos in the defensive systems. Nexarian sensors flickered with conflicting data as Raxan forces materialized at multiple entry points. But this time was different. Atlas coordinate, James commanded. The Shepherd moved with purpose, not just detecting threats but actively guiding the integrated defense teams. Months of joint training had created a system where canine instincts enhanced rather than replaced technology. The Raxan forces found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't comprehend: human-canine teams working in perfect synchronization with Nexarian technology. Where they expected confusion, they found coordination. Where they anticipated weakness, they discovered strength. Impossible, the Raxan commander's voice crackled over the comm system as his forces encountered increasing resistance. Your primitive bonds cannot overcome superior technology. James couldn't help but smile as Atlas efficiently led a team of Nexarian guards to intercept a flanking maneuver. Funny, he replied, we've heard that before. The battle turned decisively when Atlas detected a Raxan infiltrator attempting to reach the facility's power core. The Shepherd's alert prompted an immediate response from both human and Nexarian forces, their combined efforts neutralizing what would have been a devastating attack. Your mockery of our methods, Chancellor Nixza addressed the Raxan commander as the last of his forces retreated, reflects your own limitations. We once made the same mistake. The commander's face contorted with rage. You've corrupted advanced civilization with primitive emotionalism. The galaxy will. The galaxy will learn, James interrupted, Atlas standing proudly beside him, what we learned. True strength isn't about dismissing what you don't understand. It's about recognizing value in unexpected places. High Chancellor Nixza's form pulsed with agreement patterns. When we first arrived, we laughed at humans and their dogs. Now that partnership has become our greatest defensive innovation in 10,000 years. The Raxan commander's transmission cut off abruptly, but everyone present knew this wouldn't be the last challenge. The galaxy was changing, and at the heart of that change stood the very partnership that had once been dismissed as primitive. Your people have a saying, the Chancellor noted, watching as Atlas resumed training the Nexarian security teams, about who laughs last. James nodded, pride evident in his voice. Laughs best, Chancellor, who laughs last laughs best. The Great Hall, now a testament to unprecedented cooperation, hummed with the combined energy of human, canine, and Nexarian presence. The mocking laughter of the past had been replaced by something far more powerful: mutual respect and understanding. And somewhere in the galaxy, other civilizations were about to learn why you should never laugh at a human and their dog. 6 months after the second Raxan attack, James and Atlas stood on the observation deck of the Nexarian flagship Unity, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. The massive crystalline vessel, now modified to accommodate human-canine teams, sparkled with internal light that pulsed in harmony with its crew's emotions. Reminds me of the day they first arrived, James mused, scratching Atlas behind the ears. Remember how they looked at us, boy, all that superior crystalline smugness. A humbling memory, High Chancellor Nixza acknowledged as he approached, his form now displaying the comfortable patterns of friendship, a dramatic change from his first meeting with the human-canine team, though perhaps one we needed. The ship's internal communications suddenly chimed with urgent priority. Chancellor, emergency transmission from the Galactic Council. The holographic display materialized, showing the council chamber where representatives from 100 alien civilizations gathered. Many displayed signs of agitation, tentacles writhing, crystalline forms pulsing, energy beings flickering with distress. The Raxan Collective has launched simultaneous attacks across 17 systems, announced the council leader, a being of pure energy. Their new stealth technology renders our most advanced detection systems useless. James noticed several council members turn their attention to the Nexarian Chancellor. Just months ago, they had mocked Earth's inclusion in galactic affairs. Now there was something different in their gazes: expectation, perhaps even hope. You know why we're contacting you, Chancellor, the council leader continued. Your world's recent innovations in security methodology have not gone unnoticed. Atlas's ears perked up at a subtle change in the ship's ambient sound, something the advanced sensors hadn't yet registered. James smiled, remembering similar moments of canine intuition that had once drawn alien laughter. Detecting spatial distortions, a Nexarian operator announced seconds later. Raxan's signatures multiple vectors. The council transmission crackled with interference as attacks began across the galaxy. But aboard the Unity, there was no panic. Instead, a smooth integration of human, canine, and Nexarian responses began, a symphony of cooperation that would have seemed impossible half a year ago. Deploy the integrated teams, James commanded, Atlas already moving to his tactical position. Around them, other human handlers and their canine partners coordinated with Nexarian security forces. What had once been dismissed as primitive now led the defense of advanced civilization. The battle that followed became legendary in galactic history. The Raxan forces, expecting to face only technological defenses, found themselves confronted by something their advanced algorithms couldn't process: the intuitive, adaptive partnership of humans and dogs, enhanced by Nexarian technology. Atlas coordinated with other dogs across the ship, their enhanced sensory capabilities detecting Raxan infiltrators before they could breach the hull. Nexarian weapons, now modified to respond to canine alerts, struck with unprecedented accuracy. The Unity became an impregnable fortress of hybrid defense. Remarkable, the Council leader observed through the still-open transmission. Their integration is far beyond anything we've seen in 10,000 years of space-faring civilization. James watched as Atlas led a mixed team of human and Nexarian security forces to neutralize another infiltration attempt. "Amazing what can happen when you stop laughing and start learning," he commented. The Raxan attacks faltered across the galaxy as the Unity's defensive innovations were quickly shared through the Council network. Within hours, the once unstoppable offensive had been reduced to scattered, ineffective strikes. "To think," Chancellor Nixon mused, his crystalline form pulsing with colors of deep reflection, "we nearly dismissed this partnership as primitive. We almost lost something precious to our own arrogance." The Council chamber fell silent as the Raxan forces began a full retreat. The Council leader's energy form pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Chancellor, I believe we owe Earth and its remarkable partnerships a formal apology, and perhaps something more." Within days, the Galactic Council established the Interspecies Cooperation Initiative, headquartered on Earth. The program would study and implement human-canine partnership methodologies across galactic civilization. The very relationship that had drawn alien laughter now shaped the future of spacefaring species. "Your people have another saying," Chancellor Nixon observed, watching as Atlas trained a new generation of alien security forces. "About teaching old dogs." James nodded, pride evident in his voice. "New tricks, Chancellor, though in this case maybe we taught the galaxy some old ones instead." The Unity continued its patrol through space, now a symbol of what was possible when civilization moved beyond mockery to understanding. In its halls, humans and their dogs worked alongside crystalline aliens and energy beings, their combined strengths creating something greater than any had imagined possible. And if sometimes, late at night in the ship's quiet corridors, Atlas's bark echoed with just a hint of smugness, well, who could blame him? After all, they weren't laughing at the human and his dog anymore. They were learning from them.